Okay, so what's up YouTube? Today I'm gonna be focusing on the Charger. It's been sitting for almost 6 months and I'm kind of sad to see it just sit there and rot. And lately I just didn't have the time to, but now I'm getting a little bit more free time. I'm gonna start posting more and more videos. But today what I want to focus on is lowering the rear a tiny bit more because it still seems to sit a little higher than the front. And for the next few videos I'm gonna be focusing on the Charger. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned with me. But let's get to it. Okay, so I want to show you what I'm talking about right now. This is how the front sits. I can only fit about one finger in there. And then when you come to the rear, it's still sitting about 2.5 inches, 3 inches tall. And what happened was it was low at first, but about 5 to 6 months ago, I put some new rear shocks on it. And when I did, it lifted the car up so much. So now what I'm gonna do is take off my spring and cut the spring about 1 inch and see how it looks. So there's 2 ways we can actually do this. The very first time I put them on, I use this one bolt in the very back to drop the lower control arm. And then I use the little jack to put it underneath the control arm to lift it back up, compressing the spring while sliding the bolt through. And when I first did it, it took me a real long time to get everything to line up perfect. So today what I'm gonna do is drop the whole rear subframe. And on both sides, there's a big bolt right here in the rear, and there's a bigger bolt in the front. And there's 2 bolts that hold on the shocks. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lower it all 4 of these points. It's gonna drop the whole rear subframe. It'll be a lot easier for me to pull this out. That's just in my opinion, but you can do it either 2 ways, whichever one suits you the best. Okay, the hardest part about dropping the subframe is getting your exhaust out the way. But luckily for me, it's gonna be a lot easier because I left off the rubber donuts that connect the exhaust to the top. And I also left off my exhaust cover that bolts up down there at the bottom that covers the exhaust. So the only thing I have to do is take off these 2 bolts at the top and my exhaust will drop. The first thing I'm gonna do is take off the 2 top bolts that holds the shock on both sides, and then I'm gonna work my way to the bottom bolts to take off the rear subframe. Okay, so before you get these shocks unbolted, go ahead and make sure you have a jack to support the differential. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start taking the 4 big bolts that hold the rear end, and I'm gonna use the jack to slowly lower the differential to the floor. And now that I lowered it just a tiny bit, the coilover just slides right out. And that's why I like lowering the whole rear end, just to pull the coilovers out. Okay, so now I have the coil spring off of the vehicle. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a piece of tape right here so I can perfectly cut it where this piece ends. I'm gonna cut it right here. I'm gonna put it back in, I'm gonna test fit it. And if it's not low enough, I will then go right here and cut it right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut it, retest it, and see how it looks. Okay, so now that I have on eye protection and put my gloves on, I'm gonna go ahead and cut it where the black tape is. Okay, now that I have both of the coil spring cut, what I'm gonna do is go ahead and put them back where they go, and I'm gonna start jacking up the rear end back to the car, and I'm gonna line the bolts up and tighten everything up.
Many hours later.
So this is the final results, and I love the way it turned out. I'm glad I decided to cut the rear springs. That's gonna be a wrap for today's video. Thank y'all so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and y'all have a good one.